So what we're going to do is we're going to revisit the bouncing ball in place. And we're going to do it just a little differently this time. So I have a new file and reminding everyone that it is 1280 by 720. It says it right at the top in the upper bar. It's at 24 frames per second. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild our bouncing ball. We're going to use a line for the background, and this is kind of strange because I started a new file, but it's remembering that I put a background in there as a preference. It's not exactly what I wanted, but that's okay. I'm going to give myself a new layer, and this layer here, I'm just going to put. I'm trying to think if I want it on the top or the bottom. I'm going to keep it on the top. I'm going to call this my layout layer. You can put your arcs on a layout layer, but I'm going to put this layout layer. And on this layout layer, I'm going to remind myself of a couple of things. And I'm going to take my color indicator here into the red, just to remind myself that I'm looking at the corners. I don't want anything near the action safe or title safe. And I do want to pay attention to cinematic thirds. I do want to pay attention to the center of the, oops, that's in the wrong place. The very center of the screen. And reminding you that these are all focal points. And reminding you all again that focal points can be lots of different places. Even though the cinematic thirds is right out of cinema school, that you are more than welcome to explore having focal points in different places. All right, so now I'm going to go to my background layer and I'm going to pick a nice earthy color. And I'm going to draw a horizon just below this cinematic third here. Give us some sort of organic feel. I noticed that Hannah had some plants in there, so I'll draw some little plants. All right, so we're only going to use the middle again. What we're going to be doing is a bouncing ball with a tail. And so on this background layer, remember that that's just going to live there. This is my layout layer. Double check that you've drawn the parts in the right place. Double check that you've drawn the background in the right place. Select your layer 2. This is going to be a ball. So, and for you, I mean, you can use the ball that you started with if you want, but sometimes it's easier just to redo, and sometimes you learn something. On the layout layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick another color, some obnoxious yellow green or something like that. And remember that I'm going to talk about the limits. I want this, so we're going to draw a line of symmetry right down the middle of this. We want this just to be a Wes Anderson film right here. And remember that now that we're talking about overlapping action here, having this larger stage becomes pretty important. You'll see why here in just a moment. All right, so this technically is my line of action here. This is my LOA. We're not going to do anything funny with it. And remember that as we progress through the semester, I'll be talking about line of action a lot, and in the drawing class as well. All right, so if this is the line of action and our bouncing ball, this is, oops, yeah, I'm drawing on the layout layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my first ball on the layout layer because I want to make sure that I have about the correct size. So that's okay. What that does is establish the center point. So I'm gonna scrub that center point in just like that. And then I'm gonna come over here. In the lower right-hand corner is a traditional place where an animator might draw a chart. So right here, what I'm gonna do is we're we're going to go all the way back to Disney for just a moment. And there was a shot where Mickey Mouse had his little hand. And it was pivoting on the elbow. So the hand was moving down like this. And so the hand went from this position here in drawing 1, and then this drawing here on drawing 17. And the animators drew the arcs right on the rough drawing. Does anyone have an intuition why the animators might have drawn the arcs right on the rough of the drawing? Anybody? Okay, fine, I'll tell you. It's because these rough drawings went to ink and paint, and the ink and paint artists knew not to draw these arcs with the ink or the paint. They just knew. And a lot of times the animators would put the degree which the motion was breaking down on the arc. They would go like that. So this is the position for drawing 1. This is the position for drawing 3, 5, 7, 9 would often have an underline underneath it, and that was called a breakdown. This would be 11, 13, 15, and this final position here would be drawing 17. And so any of the team in the process would know drawing 1 was a drawing of the hand, and drawing 17 was a keyframe drawing of the hand, and they might be in slightly different positions. The elbow might have even dropped a little bit downwards, something like that. And this arc was drawn on the rough. But once the drawings went to Xerox, these arcs had to be taken off the keyframes, and they were put over here on the right side so that these could either be bleeded out or whited out or covered up with a piece of paper so that they didn't get transferred to the Xerox. Once they did that, this nice curve, the arc of motion, was flattened out and put over here on the right. And so in this example here, you would have drawing number 1, you have drawing number 17. Again, this is called a chart. And it's basically just a graphic representation of the motion. So in this example here, drawing 9 looks like it's exactly halfway. And so it gets an underline. Keyframes are always circled. Breakdown drawings are always underlined. So now I'm going to need a drawing 7, which is halfway between 9 and 1. And if I'm going to ease out of this position, then I just draw a line for 5 and a line for 3. And every assistant and key assistant knows to do drawing 9 first. Then 7 is an in-between of 1 and 9. And then 5 is an in-between of 1 and 7. And then 3 is an in-between of 1 and 5. And then the other part of the arc. You go like this, and you don't even need to put the numbers in there. When you're doing drawing number 11, it's halfway between 9 and 17. And then drawing 13 is halfway between 13 and 17. And then 15 is halfway between 13 and 17. So this is a technical ease out, and this is a technical ease in. This is a chart. Everyone okay? So I'm going to elaborate on this drawing just a little bit here. I'm going to make it a little bigger so that we can see, because charts were generally drawn about that size. Sometimes animators would get sloppy. They would just say drawing 1, and they would go 17, and they would go like this, and they would say 9, and they wouldn't put anything else. And then they might do half like this. And everyone knows 9 is the breakdown, and then everything else is an in-between, 7, 5, 3, 11, 15, I'm sorry, 11, 15, 11, 13, 15. And so I always like to draw my charts really clearly, but some animators were, and still probably are, just a little messy. All right, so does this make sense? Everyone okay with this idea? All right, so this bouncing ball here, and so I want to elaborate on this just a little bit, because we're starting from an upper position and we're easing out of this motion, technically easing into the acceleration, but you can think of it either way. So this center point of the ball, and I'm going to redo this just like we did last week, moves a little bit. Remember, it's got to move. The second drawing, it's got to move a little bit more. It's accelerating. And then the fourth drawing is accelerating again. The fifth drawing is accelerating again. The sixth drawing is it's accelerating. So in my shorthand, take this distance and copy it and add a little bit more. Take this distance and copy it and add a little bit more. That gives you your proper acceleration. Now remember that the ball can be interrupted by the ground plane anywhere in this straight arc of motion here. Remember that this is the horizon and that your virtual ground plane is somewhere about right here. Somewhere in this area right here, staying away from the edge of the screen. So this is a decent amount of drawings. This is a decent amount of frames. If you were going to do a chart for this, you would look at it and you would say, this is my upper position. This is my lower position. Oh, look, this drawing right here is very close to halfway. So let's count. So let's see. And this drawing right here looks like it's halfway between these two. And if we fudge this one just a little bit, this one might be halfway between those two. These two look like they're on thirds, right? It looks like you're dividing up this almost into thirds. But for these two, if you wanted to get an assistant to help you, you might say that this is drawing 1. If this is on 2s, then this would be drawing 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15 is your squash drawing. Now, remember that the position of 13, if it's really that far away, that adding stretch onto this is quite a bit of an exaggeration. One thing that the animator might do is say that this is going to be on 1s. And in the chart for this, he's not only going to ask for drawings on 2s, he's going to ask for every other drawing on 1s to be in there. And it's up to the assistant animator to not do a 10 drawing that's right in between the middle of 9, because it's still got to be accelerating. And in order to accelerate properly, it's got to be closer to 9. So if I was going to do a chart for this, and I would say 17 is down here, 11 does look like it's in the middle. I'll put a line underneath it. That's my breakdown drawing. But I might not put any positions in here. I might just indicate to the lead key assistant that this is easing out, and that the lead key is going to have to go, oh, well, I'm sorry, this is 15 here, not 17. And if it's on 2s, the lead key is going to know not to put the 13 drawing exactly halfway between 11 and 15. They're going to know to favor 11 just a little bit. And the lead key can go back in here and do the same thing. They can say, well, look, if the animator put this as a secondary breakdown between the 11 breakdown and 1, then they know they can go, oh, well, look, if I'm on 2s, 9 is going to favor 7 a little bit. So 9 is going to be about right there. And then I've got 2 drawings to put in between 7 and 1. So 5, if it's halfway, and then I zoomed in, this distance is too much right here because it's too much, it's bigger than this distance. So I'm gonna have to realize why my Command Z is not working here. It's really strange, it's not working. And it looks like it just crashed. Nope, I just went away from it, okay. I'm gonna erase this, go back to my pencil. So I'm paying attention to this distance right here. It has to be smaller than this distance in order to see the acceleration. The same thing with this position. So it gets a little tricky if you're trying to emulate this chart to make it look like your actual arc on the animation itself. All right, so again, charts. The idea of charts. And this is a good example here of the planning out of the positions for these balls. This is good right here. All right, so as long as everyone's okay with this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this little part right here. And I'm going to give myself a new layer. This layer right here, I'm going to call this one my arc layer. And I'm going to take my layout layer and just make it a little dim. I'm going to paste in my layout layer and my arc layer. And now it's not working. Oh, I have to. There's a strange thing in Rough Animator that if you have something selected down here, even though you touch the stage, it's not gonna paste it in the correct position. So on the layout layer, I'm gonna recopy. Yeah, this is fine. I'm gonna recopy just this first ball. Copy. I'm gonna go to my arc layer. I'm gonna paste it. But see, this is flashing, even though I test. You have to make sure it's in the right place. Okay, so now I'm going to take my layout layer and turn it down. And now my arc layer is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to elaborate again just on this being the final position. And I want to ease into this motion. So I'm going to, again, copy this distance, add a little bit more. Copy this distance, add a little bit more. Copy the distance, add a little bit more. Copy the distance. Copy the spacing, add a little bit more, copy, add a little bit, pay attention to your graphics. And right there is good because then this is in a good place. All right, so and if we did our chart here, we could discover that this is drawing 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, and 17. Where 13 doesn't look like it's directly in the middle anymore, or at least this time. All right, so as long as everyone's okay with that, I'm going to go to our ball layer. We're going to pick a blue color for our ball, and we're going to just copy this ball. And we're going to, for this one, I think that you could copy and paste if you want. So let's just do this. It'll speed things up a little bit. So I'm gonna copy this ball. On the ball layer itself, see this is flashing here. I'm gonna make sure that that ball is on the right layer. All right, so I'm gonna make that on 2s. Remember, it's bringing the background with it, and I'm gonna add a drawing after, and that brings the background with it. I'm gonna paste, and I'm going to take my arc layer and get the duration to come out with it. Let's just take the arc and the ball out to like 24 frames. If this is drawing 17, I'm going to need at least 34 frames. I just doubled it, so I need at least 34 frames. All right, so back to the ball layer. This ball right here needs to be moved. So I'm going to see if this little hand will move it, and it's moving the whole stage. So I'm going to lasso it, and I'm going to see if I can move it just down so that it meets the center and it stays on the line right here. This is, I want to make sure that it doesn't wiggle left or right. The point here is that you should have all gotten your timing from the example that we just looked at today. But from right now, what's most important is the actual spacing. All right, so I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to add a drawing after, and I'm going to paste, and I'm going to move this down to the next one. I'm going to turn my onion skin on and off again just to make sure I'm accelerating correctly. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to add a drawing after. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to move it to the next center point. Remember, I don't want any left and right wiggle. I'm going to copy it again. I'm going to add a drawing after. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to move it to the next position. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to add a drawing after. I'm going to paste it, move it to the next position. Copy it, add a drawing after, paste it, move it to the next position. Copy it, add a drawing after, paste it, move it to the next position. Copy it, add a drawing after, paste it, move it to the squash position, but this time I'm going to modify it using the handles. I'm just going to give my squash and stretch using the handles. All right, I'm going to keep the one in the clipboard and add a drawing after and paste it and just leave it there because this one was in the same place. I'm going to copy it, add a drawing after, and then I'm going to move it up, paste it, move it up into this position, copy it, add a drawing after, paste, move it up, copy it, add a drawing after, paste, move it up, copy it, after, paste, up, copy it, after, paste, up, copy, after, oops, after, paste. And what I'm going to do now is that I can see my timeline that I want to put one more drawing here. I need that drawing. So I'm going to copy it, after, paste, and this one's going to be, it doesn't have to be right on top. It could just be right there. That's a good place for it. All right, so let's save this. This is the first time, so this is Billy B underscore bouncing ball with tail. So WWT underscore version 1. Save it. Let's play this. We want to range from 1 to 34. Okay, so just with that little bit of squash, we're getting our ball to behave itself. On the way up, there's a ball that needs to be repositioned. So let's turn our onion skin on and let's take a look at it. So right now I'm using my arrow keys to navigate. So that one right there needs to be moved a little bit. Just to the right. I'm going to navigate to the next one. And I think this one could be moved a little bit to the right as well. All right, good. All right, so let's take a look at it. Okay, that's a little better. Everyone okay? So I just showed you how to do the same basic bouncing ball in place just a little faster this time. And we're not going to pay too much attention to adding in the stretch on the drawing before the squash or after, because what this is going to be is the tail. I'm going to add a layer, and this layer is in the right place. I want it to be above the bouncing ball. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create the tail in an analogous green. And I'm going to pick my pencil, and I'm going to pick the right side here. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the spine for that would be the tail. This is like the direction of the tail. But what I'm going to do is so I want to know where it connects to the ball. But in this case right here, I'm going to draw a compound arc, an S shape, just like this. And I'm going to make this on 2s. So I'm going to add a drawing afterwards. And remember, so we're looking at a point right across from the center here where the connection for the tail is. Now, what happens here is that this point will not change in the entire animation. So what happens is that we're going to not only talk about overlapping action, but we're going to talk about drag a little bit here, because the tail in this case has a little bit of muscle in the first part of it, but it doesn't have too many muscles in the end of it. So the end of the tail is dragging behind it. So take your pencil and draw the tip of the second tail so that it's kind of pointing at where the first tail used to be. Again, this is just the center. We're going to embellish this in just a little bit. All right, so again, now we're starting from the center point where it connects to the balls, perpendicular across in the middle. We're still drawing this arc upwards, and it's still dragging behind it. Now, the thing that you want to do is you want to kind of gauge that you're not stretching out the tail. So if you want to use your arrow keys to go backwards and forwards, make sure that the tail is not elongating itself. All right, so now we're going to add a drawing after. And right again, oh wait, something's wrong, hold on. I'm going to call this, I'll make sure I call this a tail. Tail, come on. All right, I'm going to save this because my computer is being funny. And I spelled tail wrong, so I'm going to do it again. And it's not behaving. There we go. All right, so I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to make sure that my tail is not showing up on the wrong layer. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back on again. Okay, good. Oh, onion skin I want on. You know, that's weird because I can't see this ball here. It's there. Yeah, that's unusual. Okay, let's just continue. So right now, oh, wrong tool, sorry. All right, so again, perpendicular across the middle and dragging behind and making sure that the tail doesn't elongate. Try to maintain this S shape as much as you can. Add a drawing after. And again, so now about this drawing number 9, the tail is just going to be this kind of shape. We're not going to have too many frames to get the tail to wiggle. But for the next few drawings, the tail is just going to stay that kind of shape. All right, something really wonderful happens on this next drawing. The stretch is emulated by the idea, accentuated by the idea that this tail is going to push out and even further. So I think that what I want to do is just kind of get it to really push out like this. And we might have to do this drawing. We might have to go back in and do a ball right here in order to get the flip over correctly. But let's just see how it works. All right, so this looks pretty natural. The tail is working right there. On this drawing right here, oops, we have to actually add that drawing. All right, so on this drawing right here, the tail is now flipped. So start drawing it this way, but it's also dragging. So point the tip. So start going this way, but point it to where the other tip was at first. That's the drag, and that's why we might need to put another drawing in between those two. All right, so then the same kind of thing happens as we're going up. Oh, hold on a second. It didn't take that correctly. So start in the middle, point it down, and just like before, even though it's moving a little faster, it still points at this tip. All right, add a drawing afterwards. Now the tail can just be that kind of shape right there. Again, we're just talking about the center portion of it. We're going to actually draw the full tail, but we got to get the animation right first. All right, it starts to slow down a little bit right here. So get the overall push of the arc. So the tail is going to move out this way. And so start getting it to fluff back out a little bit to the right. So go to the right. It's slowing down. So you see that little arc we drew there? That's important. We need 2 more drawings. All right, so then it's really slowing down. And one last drawing. So this becomes an important drawing here, and that's kind of why I didn't want it on top of the other one, because not only does it slow down, it starts to curl out a little bit. It starts to curl out just a little bit so that if we jump back to the first one, you can see that it's animating. So let's take a look at it at speed. It flips a little too fast. So let's go back to this tail and let's kind of get this tail to relax just a little bit more. Let's go to this one and erase part of it. And so now it starts to relax even just a little bit more. If we wanted to, what we could do is we go to this tail layer, right? And we can see that this tail is here, but we're going to jump to our arc layer. And in some strange other, we could just keep it in green, but I'm going to draw the tail for drawing number 1 on the arc layer so that when we go to this tail, we know what we're animating into. See, so I'm going to turn the arc layer off or just turn it on just a little bit. It's still jumping too much. So this one right here, we might want to erase it just a little bit more. And then make sure that it's kind of in between those two. And then let's go backwards a frame and let's erase this little bit. And I think that we're okay right now. So let's look at it. So it's not snapping as much. You see how we made that little adjustment right there? Everyone okay? Let's just take a look at this, everyone. Our process, once again, is that we copy and pasted the ball, and we got our perpetual bouncing ball. We made our arc, we have our background. we started with the tail in that little S-shaped position at the first, and we animated it downwards, straight ahead, just kind of feeling what the shape would look like as the air is dragging on it. It looks okay. What we also talked about was that somewhere in the middle of this tail, we added a little arc. To describe, I'm going to do this on the arc layer in another color now, so that the tip of the tail with the current of the air is going to come in a little bit. So that gives you a guide for how the air behaves to the tail. The tip of the tail should fall on that arc for the most part. For the most part. All right, everyone getting the idea here? Let's fluff out the tail now. So what you could do is if you wanted to preserve this animation, you could give yourself another layer. You can just say, oops, oh, hold on. I'm going to give myself an empty layer above the tail. And let's just call this tail full, for full tail. And what we're just going to do is we're going to pick maybe we started in blue for the ball. Let's give a different color so we can see it. Let's go into our neutral earthy color here. And ideally we would, it would be easier to draw this if I could turn my stage. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of fur on top of the tail and a little bit of fur underneath the tail. It's like a fox tail coming to the point at the tip. All right, and then I drew that on the wrong layer. And it's not undoing it, so hold on one second. I drew that on my tail layer. All right, I'm going to erase it. All right, good. Tail, and it renamed layer 5. That's really strange. Oh, because it took the Command Z. Tail underscore full. Okay. So now I'm on that layer. I got my earth tone. Again, just we're adding volume on top and below the tail so that it's like a fox tail. Here we're on 2s, so we're adding a drawing afterwards, and just go right along with your animation and give your volume to the tail. Remember, it tapers to a tip at the end. You want to draw volume on the top and below that line. Add a drawing after. Try to get as much of a natural, fluffy curve in there as you can. And you don't want the tail to gain volume or lose volume too much. So keep that in mind. You want to always be drawing the same density, the same volume of the tail itself. Again, we're adding fur below the main frame of the tail, above and below, coming to a tapered point. And these next drawings are going to look very similar. So use your artistic skills here. You're drawing a compound curve on top and a regular, just rounded curve on the bottom. Again, I'll do that again. A compound curve on the top. So you got an outside arc and then an inside arc, and then just a long flowing arc on the bottom. That one might be just a little too fat. I can tell by the other ones up there, it's getting a little too fat. All right, so one of the things that I was doing while thinking about the shape of the tail as it was coming down was just thinking about the air resistance, thinking about what the air might do to it. In this drawing here, I knew this was squashing. So I brought my tail out with it. Again, on top. So now the top is a compound curve, and below is also a compound curve. We're just adding volume. All right, one thing about doing the tail animation this way, you know it's going to work, but what you're looking for is just consistent volume. And that's most of the reason why I chose to use a different color so that we can pick up on it, and why I chose to put it on a separate layer so that even though this might be technically a tie down layer, we can clean it up on another layer if we really need to. All right, so now the air resistance is causing just a simple curve on the top, but a compound curve on the bottom. Simple curve on the top, gradually going to the point, and a compound curve going to the bottom. 3 more drawings. It starts to relax now, so the air doesn't have too much pressure on it. And a compound curve on the top now, emulating, oops, I don't like that line. And also, you know, everyone, I didn't explain, but I'm also sketching. I'm using lots of smaller lines rather than just trying to hit it in one stroke. All right, so just remembering, repeating that one of the things that helped us was taking this first tail shape right here and copying it onto our arc layer, because that arc layer lives for the entire animation. And when we were trying to figure out the position of it, we could see just by the bones of that tail that this very last drawing, number 33, which lasts for frame 33 and 34, had to be adjusted so that it looped correctly. All right, so let's take a look at this. And it looks like it's working okay. And I don't think we need to go in and add another drawing right there. So right there is your bouncing ball with a tail. Everyone okay?
Yes.
Yep. 17 drawings. So I did the hard one first. I don't know why I did the hard one first, but it doesn't matter, because next week I also want what I want. I want everything, and I want it now. Yeah. Nobody's going to react. No, I think that's right. Billy, no, you're not getting anything.
Yeah, you're too greedy, Billy. You're too greedy.
All right. So as long as you're okay with that, and as long as this recording is working tonight, hopefully it's working well, I'm going to stop the playback. I'm going to make a new file here, and this one's just going to be really simple. This is a bowling ball. So this is the really, really easy one. Our background, again, we're just going to get some earth back there. And our layer number 1, our background can have a little thing on it. We can just give actually, this one might be more interesting if we draw kind of a ledge. All right, on the first layer right here, we're just going to add. Oh, sorry, we're gonna keep this on 2s. We're going to add a drawing after. We're gonna add a drawing after, because on this one, we're gonna treat it more like cinema. So this is drawing 8. So we don't want anything up until at least frame 10. And then on, so this is the ball layer. This is the bowling ball. I'm gonna give the bowling ball a different color. Let's make our bowling ball green. And we're gonna start drawing right here. So this bowling ball is going to enter from off screen. And that's good right there. So let's give another layer to draw our arc layer. So this layer is our arc layer. And we're gonna, in a yellow, we're gonna draw, so let's drag this out so we can see the ball. And I'm gonna make a mark right here just so that I can move my cursor out here and draw on this layer. Did everyone understand what I just did right there? Let me explain that. In many animation programs, you won't be able to see what's coming, even though you're holding this arc layer for as many frames as the background is, until you make a little mark on it somewhere, until you tell the arc layer that this is a keyframe. And as soon as I did that, you see that it zipped out all the way to the end of frame 10. So now I can just draw a very straight line. And the ball is going to launch off. Remember, this is a bowling ball. So it's going at a regular speed. And it's going to hit the ground. And Timmy, is it going to squash and stretch?
Oh, sure. It's going to break through the ground.
It's
well,
a
depending on how high
ball.
it is.
So bowling balls are made of ethylene butyl styrene. It's a very stiff plastic. It's the same kind of plastic that they use in football helmets. The bowling ball is going to have hardly any squash or stretch in it at all. At all. So it's going to have a little bit of a bounce. So if it hits the ground plane about right here, it's only going to come up about this far. And that might even be too much.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Are you sure it's going to bounce that high?
I'm going to adjust that a little bit. And let's just have it come up. I wanted to break the horizon just a little bit. And remember that now we can see this arc more fully here, that this is the half of the distance. And so the full distance is going to be like this. But in this case, it's not going to have that much compression. So it's just it's going to land about right here. And the second bounce is going to be nothing. It's going to be just a little dribble and then maybe a little bit of a roll. Remember, this is the center point. So the end of the bouncing, the ball is going to be down about here somewhere. All right, and we can put our marks here. We're on the arc layer. So it's going to be moving at a constant speed. So at this point, just take these positions and copy them. It's going to be moving at a constant speed. And so its acceleration is going to be faster. Remember what we did? We copied that distance and added a little bit. Copy the distance, add a little bit. There will be no stretch. There will be no squash. And remember what we did here. Remember, it's losing momentum. So that 45-degree angle is important. So this is the next position in sequence, whatever number this is. And then it's going to reach the top of its arc. We might even need this one here. We'll see how it works. And then this one, and then that one. 2 right here, this, and then a roll. Oh, hold on. A roll to a stop. So get these center points to just ease into a stop. That's your arc. Here's my ball. I'm going to just take it easy on myself here. I'm going to copy this ball. I'm going to add a frame after on 2s. And you can see that the arc disappeared. So I'm gonna have to expand that here in just a minute. Let's take the background. We're gonna need a bunch of frames. Let's take it all the way out. All right, so on this frame, it's empty. Paste, drag this center point. Make sure it doesn't go up and down. And the shift key is not working. So it doesn't constrain the position left or right. You know, the ball does have a strange little shape to it here. So you could rotate it 25, 30 degrees, copy it, add, paste, drag it to the center position, and then rotate it a little bit, and it will roll. Copy it, add a drawing afterwards, paste it, move it to the center position. Remember that the ball is moving at a constant speed. Drag it a little bit, copy it, add a drawing after, add a drawing after, paste, move, rotate just a little bit, copy, add, paste, move, rotate a little bit.
Why do you rotate them?
Because it's rolling. It's rolling on the top of that ledge up there.
Oh, I see.
And if it was a perfect circle, we would not see any rotation. But because I had a little wiggle in there, let's make it rotate. And again, this is really easy. It continues to rotate in the air. All right, so that arc becomes really important there. We have to make sure that we're lining our ball in the right place. We want to make sure that the arc, when the arc is turned off, that we still feel it. I think this one was all the way down there. I'm going to move it up just a little bit. And that's the center point right there. It's not that little tip right there. That's the center point. Copy it, paste, and then that's the position we want right here. And we don't have to rotate it anymore if that's okay. So I'm going to copy it, add a drawing after, paste it, and then pay attention. Now there's the way we planned this, there's 3 drawings right in a row there. So make sure you got the optical center, copy it, add a drawing after, paste it. This is the very top of the arc. Find the optical center of that ball, copy it, add a drawing after, watch your timeline. So now you have to extend this out and shrink it down, timeline, horizon control. Go back to this drawing here, paste it. Find the optical center, copy it, add a drawing after, paste it. This one is right there. Copy it, paste it. This one's all the way on the ground. We'll see about that. We might have to tweak those positions. copy it, add a drawing after, paste it. So we need 3 right here now. Find the optical center of that mark. Copy it, touch the arc layer and add a bunch of drawings in there. Go back here, add a drawing after, paste it. Remember where we were. Okay. All right, so right about here, what I'm going to do is start to rotate it again. Copy, add a drawing after, paste it. So now it's rolling. So I'm just going to move it horizontally just a little bit and just rotate it just a little bit. Copy, add a drawing after, paste, move it just a little bit. And remember that now we're slowing down. Copy it, add a drawing after, paste it, move it just a little bit less than you did before, rotate it. Oh, that's weird. I don't know what happened there. Let me go backwards. All right. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to explain here is that we could, and let me just do it. So there's my ball. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to add a blank drawing. I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to pay very close attention here because this is hardly moving at all. It's easing into a stop. It's only rolling a tiny little bit. I only want to copy and paste it one more time. And we're basically done with the animation, but for cinematic effects, I'm on frame 74. I want the audience to look at it for a second. So I want to add 24 frames to this. So that's 98. So I'm going to take this out to 98 frames. Oops, just 98 frames. And I'm going to squish this down so I can see them all. And now this ball on frame number 73 will disappear. See it disappear? So I just touch this frame and take it out and add frames all the way to the end, just like that. Save it, save your file. This is Billy B underscore bouncing ball, bowling ball, and just leave it that way. So there's too many B's, but that's okay. All right, so does it look natural? It comes in and it stops. Does it look like a bowling ball? It's close. So you got this one. That's easy. This one's a little bit more sophisticated. This one takes a little bit more thinking, a little bit more critical thought. And there's 2 projects due next week, a bowling ball and a perpetual bouncing ball with a tail. All right, so what I'd like to do here is I'm going to stop this animation. And right now I'm going to go to my ball layer here. Remember that we talked about this? You know what? Let me take a 5-minute break. And I'm going to show you how to tweak this a little bit. I'm going to show you one more thing. So just take 5. Come back at like 3 minutes after 9. Take a 5 short minute break. I need something, a drink of water. All right, I'm back, everybody. Everybody come back, come back, come back, come back. I wanted to show you just one little way of adjusting your animation so that if you need to, you know how to do it, at least in this program, in this application. There are different ways to do it in Flash and in Toon Boom, in Photoshop. But this one is just a little different. So what we're going to do is we're looking at this ball right here. Let's play this one more time. And it's moving pretty smoothly, but there's a couple of strange things that happen. One is that this ball is in the exact same place as this ball, and so too are the other ones. So like, as the ball is coming down, it registers in our eye that these little spaces are flashing. This is a unique shape. But then this ball right here, come on, this ball was just like the one on frame 31. And so what happens is that it flashes in our eye. So what I think what I'd like to do, see, that's even a double flash right there, is take this drawing and we're going to take it on ones. So I just reduced a frame right here. Okay. And now I'm going to go to my lasso tool and I'm going to just, and I'm on the ball layer. So it should just be picking up the ball. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to add one frame after. So now I should have a blank drawing right here. I'm going to paste it, but I want to look at these positions. I'm on ones now. And so I don't want this ball to be right in the middle. I want it to overlap just a little bit right there. Just about right there. So that's on ones. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this position. This drawing here, this squash drawing is still on twos, but we might want to put that on ones here in just a minute. This drawing is the same in this position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and add a drawing after it. So I got a blank drawing there, but I'm going to take this down to ones and paste it. Now, did you see what I did there? I had to move it apart from each other so that the blank drawing would be in the right place. So now it's in the same place as this drawing here that's on ones. But this one, because it was interrupted by the ground, I can stretch this one. So let's stretch this one. It'll make it a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to overlap those edges right there too. Even though it's not technically in the right place, it'll look better, I promise you. All right, so with that adjustment, I've just added two drawings, and we should have the same number of drawings that we started with, and it should loop properly. The tail's going to flash. And you see that the arc is flashing there too at the end. All right, so what I'm trying to determine right now, just by looking at this and realizing that you all may be seeing a delay in your Zoom feed, but right now I'm trying to determine if that squash drawing needs to be on ones or not. I think it looks okay, but for right now, let's take this drawing down to ones and just look at it. Now you can see here that it pulled this keyframe down to the duration of the background and the arc. So now we're even where we started with. This drawing here is on ones. This is on ones. The squash drawing is on ones. And our new position for the stretch drawing is on ones. We need two more tails. Let's take a look at the timing. I think it has a little bit more snap. I think it has a little bit more punch. So let's just leave it that way, just for right now. Let's draw on our tail layer. So this has the tail. We want to eyedropper the green. but I don't see an eyedropper. I thought there was an eyedropper.
It's in the color palette.
It's in the color palette.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's right here. All right, we got, oh, no, we didn't. It's white. It did, let me go to my, it's on the tail layer. It didn't see that green. Yeah, all right, we're just gonna wing it. We're gonna give ourselves a close enough green. And on this layer, which doesn't have, we're gonna turn our onion skin on. And I'm going to, I don't know why I can't see the drawing before it or after it. I should be able to, I don't know why I can't see the drawing afterwards. All right, so let's just go backwards. This ball is coming down. So I know that the tail of the ball should look like this. You know, and I'm also kind of, I'm wondering why I can't see that little tail right there. So I know it should look like that. Let's get the other one in there. So that one's down here. This is coming up. So now this is important. This is a stretch drawing. So, and the tip of the tail should be in the same place as squash, but the air is pulling it this way. And this is a nice full S shape right here. We will be able to see this in the playback. Watch. See it? It's like, okay, so let's put the full tail in there. But for the full tail, we got to do the same fix that we just did with the main ball. Oh, maybe that's why I didn't see it.
Do you think the onion skin can only work on the layer that you're working
That you're on, yeah. But I also I realized I just made a mistake, and the mistake I made is that I didn't adjust my tail timing. So I'm going to Command Z a bunch of times just to get out of that. All right, so now I'm on the tail layer here, and I'm going to do the same exact thing I did with the ball. I'm going to reduce this to 1 frame. I'm going to add a blank drawing afterwards. Remember, this is the tail. And so even though it looks green, I think it's just because it's showing me the drawing before it. All right, and then this one is the squash drawing, and the tail needs to be reduced. So I'm going to bring that down by 1, add a drawing afterwards. And now this one is technically blank. So I want this tail to be here. And I'm going to jump over to this layer. And the fluff has to be moved too. The full has to be moved. So reduce the full, add a frame afterwards. Take the squash drawing, reduce it by a frame, add a drawing afterwards so that this drawing is in the right place. So this drawing and this drawing are blank right now. So this is the full tail. So let's pick up that brown again. And on these 2 blank drawings here, let's just pencil in our full tail. And on this one, a nice S curve on the top. And even though this goes down, it should have a nice S curve on the bottom as well. All right, so let's take a look at what this looks like. All right, I think that's a better appeal, having these drawings on 1s right here. So we did it on 2s to start with. And I just showed you how to fix it right there. Let's stop the playback and turn this arc off all the way. And now play it. I'm going to turn the onion skin off too. All right, so we have just a little bit more time. Let me try one more thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this ball layer, and I'm going to go to the paint bucket, and I'm going to pick a light blue. And the reason why I'm going to paint this a light blue is because there's a thing in animation called strobing. What we've been looking at for the last couple weeks is just lines moving around. But now that I painted this ball, and we'll paint all these balls just blue, and I'm just painting it like a rough blue, right? Is that now we're giving the ball a density. And if there's any problems with the animation, we will see it once these balls are painted. So let's take a look at this now. And you can kind of see it has more of a solid feel to it. It's not strobing as much. It's not pulsing as much. Let's do the same thing with the full tail. Now, I don't know how this is going to work because the line is a little broken in here. It might not be full, but let's try it. Oh, yeah, it's not going to work. One thing you can do is you could just kind of take your paintbrush with that color, and on the full layer here is just kind of color it in a little bit. Go to the next frame and just kind of, I'm just kind of scratching in like I was drawing with the side of my pencil. And we should, after we do it like this, we should be able to see that tail just a little bit more clearly. I would consider this to still be rough, and that both of the ball and the tail layer could be combined into a clean layer. But what we're doing right now is we're just trying to get in there and make sure that no strobing is happening. Like especially on this one, this top of this arc right here was just a little light. Again, the tail that we just drew here is in a reciprocal cycling motion, and we animated it straight ahead. So we actually did a couple of different things today. If we going back and look at our principles of animation, we were talking about working pose to pose when we're doing balls and figuring out the timings, but doing that tail, now we're talking about actually animating straight ahead. We didn't use keyframes in there. We did it by intuition. The amount to which we put the squash and stretch in there, we kind of covered a little bit of exaggeration too. So we're getting there with the principles of animation. All right, let's take a look at this. Oh, it's flashing. Hold on a second. All right, so this is actually frame 34. So let's just loop it to frame 34. 17 times 2 is 34. All right, so I think we did a right thing. We did a right thing by putting that faster motion on ones down there and breaking it up, and then going back in and doing the same thing with our tailbone and then the fur for the tail. And I think it looks a bunch better. I don't think we need to add a drawing at the top. And the reason for that is because this ball, and now you can see the problem with turning the onion skin on is that now you're going to get a whole fill of color and you won't be able to see the line work as clearly. So it makes sense to you to get the motion working first before you test for strobing. But this ball right here was not in the exact same place as that ball. See it? Let me do that one more time. The first ball and the last ball are just slightly different. And that's why it moves. It doesn't hold. It doesn't stop. It doesn't freeze. They're very close, so the apparent motion is slower, but it doesn't freeze, and that's the whole trick here. All right, everyone get the idea?